Hi, Gene Burnett from GeneBurnett.com. Hey, I thought I would share a little posture check that I've been working on lately that's really been helping my practice. I'm going to assume that you're maybe already doing some yoga or some Tai Chi, and your feet and your knees tend to point the same direction. So if your knees come in like this, then you really need to work on that. And that's a whole nother practice idea. But if your knees are more or less pointed towards the middle of your feet and your knees don't go much past your toes in most situations, your weight of your body falls into your legs pretty good. That's kind of a foundational prerequisite for doing what I'm talking about. So when this is in place and you want to check a little bit further, this posture check is very simple. I call it, it's the 3 H's. I call it hips, which means sitting into the hips so that your hips are not, this is not flat going forward here, but there's a slight crease there, the same crease when you're sitting in a chair or downhill skiing or getting ready to jump, that crease there, and also a slight tuck in the back of the hips. So there's tuck in the front and crease in the front, slight tuck in the back. So part 1 of this trio is hips. So say you get to a Tai Chi position here and you think hips. So it's easy to sink into the hip that has the weight, but also release into the hip that doesn't have the weight. There should be an equal sitting feeling in both hips. So the first check is hips. Again, assuming your feet and your knees are pointing the same way. Right? The second H is heart. So that I use that to think of the middle of my chest, and what I don't want to do here is puff my chest forward. So I definitely want to restrain that if that's the case. But I also don't want to collapse my chest and round my back like this. Sometimes there's translations of old Chinese classics that urge you to collapse your chest. And some people study with old masters who had collapsed chest and round backs. If that's the path you're taking up the mountain, more power to you. It just didn't work for me at all. What works for me in terms of pain management and being an older person with a somewhat wonky lower back situation that I've had all my life, for me, I'm working on upright and making space in my spine. So longer spine. So for me, when I think of the chest, I don't think of collapse it, and I don't think of puff it forward. I think of lift it. It's a slight lift, and it's a lift front and back, like someone had my ribs and just lifted gently. So when I come to a position, and I'll just come to this similar position I did before, I check my hips, and then I check my chest. It's like a slight lift and a slight uprighting feeling. Not slumped, not puffed forward, right? So that goes for just neutral standing, when I'm just standing and getting ready to do a form or a movement. Hips, heart, right? Hips, heart. If you're lifting it really high and it's an effort, that's too far. You don't want it to be an effort. You don't want it to be a strain at all. A little bit of effort, but not a strain. So the third H, obviously, the head. So you can, or I can, take my chin in and then lift the back of my head up, or I can lift the back of my head up and duck my chin, but I prefer to think of a diagonal line running through my head from my chin to the back of my skull, like right where, like you put a little, like a cap or a yarmulke on the back of your head, and you want to feel like that pulls up and back this way. It's a diagonal that way. And again, if your throat is tight and tense and you can't talk, that's too far. You've gone to the strain point, right? So this little correction here does wonders for releasing neck stress, headache stress, tension stress, because most of us have our chins forward, and most of us have our chest collapses, and we're looking at our phones, or we're looking at our devices, and our eyes are screened forward. Chin is way in front of the body here. So if you think, oh, my chin's forward, I got to take it back, but you don't do anything else but that, it's kind of meaningless. If you really want to get a bang for the buck out of that little adjustment, you got to start at the ground. Your feet have to be pointing the same direction as your toes, like a little bit of feeling of like riding a motorcycle. Your thighs aren't collapsed, right? And then it needs to be a hip crease. And that needs to be equal, both hips creased equally, not one up and one down, most of the time. And the tail is tucked. And then the chest lifted up but restrained. So not puffing forward, not collapsing, just kind of an upward movement. And then this movement suddenly has real relevance, and it really makes for a nice upright posture that feels relatively, I'm not going to say numb, because I'm not numb here, but I don't feel anything. It feels like air. It just feels like freedom, and I can turn my head anywhere I want to. So I do this check constantly. It's slowing down my forms, and it's putting more work into my legs, so that's always good. It's like more leg work. And it's also sacrificing flow a little bit, because I want to take a beat and do these checks. But you know, it's not going to go on forever. I want to incorporate this in my body so that whenever I come to a still place, I sit into my hips, my chest lifts a little bit, and my head slips back a little bit. So I'm aware of the back of my body, not just all curled forward. And this dovetails, of course, with the idea that I'm working on more than anything else these days, which is that postural corrections, structural corrections, are the most relevant when you're in stillness. And they are a little bit relevant when you're moving slowly, and they are irrelevant when you're moving fast. So imagine you had a straitjacket that you could put on that would force your body into perfect posture. It would only be perfect for that position. Once you started moving, your straitjacket would encumber your movement. So you're not trying to hold your spine upright while you're moving around in life. It would be impossible. It isn't meant to be that way. Standing with an upright spine in stillness tells your body, this is what I want to default to when I don't have to do anything else. So when I'm lifting things and moving things, of course I can't stay upright the whole time. But when that's done, hips, heart, head, boom. Telling my body that when I'm still, I'm going to default to that, and when I'm moving, don't stray any farther from upright than you need to. That's my goal, because I want a structural relationship or a structural alignment to gravity when I'm still, but I want a functional relationship to gravity when I'm moving. So I want to be functionally aligned with gravity so that I'm in the best position, given whatever I'm doing, to take the work into my body a little more vertically than sideways, and you know, the joints going out of whack that way. I'm trying to take gravity through my body this way. If pressure's coming right at me, then I have to angle towards it, directing it down that way. So I'm trying to functionally always put myself in the best relationship to gravity that I can be in. But when stillness happens to come along, or very slow moving comes along, I want to default back to neutral. I want to default back to level pelvis. I want to default back to this basic position. So training the body in good posture habits for me means doing that in stillness, and then letting my body move as it does, but anytime I'm still, checking that again. So the Tai Chi form is great for this because it's a long series of slow motion movements. So not only can you have a bit of an eye on it while you're moving, although I still don't put the main eye on it until I come to a position. So for instance, I might do the opening to the form. And as I finish that opening, hips, heart, head. Then I might turn and go to my next position, holding the ball here. Hips, heart, head, step. Hips, both of them, including the empty one. Heart, head. Shift forward, turn. Finish that move. Hips, heart, head. Just standing around at a concert. Hips, heart, head. So I just keep defaulting back to that upright position to counter this, to counter chin forward, chest collapsed, eyes on screen. So to counter that, that's my correction. The place that I've gotten the most value from this movement, or from this correction, or this way of correcting, is in my kicks. When if I'm going to get ready to go into a kick here, I would make sure I was sort of over my stuff, so to speak. I'd feel my hips, my heart, and my head. And then I lift my knee up like that and get ready to kick. Hips, heart, head. Then I'm opening and kicking from there. Hips, heart, head. Back again, whatever the movement is in your particular form. And then again, every time, every single pause. Hips, heart, head. Whatever the move, hips, heart, head. And gradually, they're becoming connected for me. What I would like ultimately is that whenever I sit into my hips, I just automatically, my head automatic, or my heart automatically restrained and up, my head automatically up and back a little, so that I don't have to even think about it. But right now I'm thinking about it. So when I do a bone level correction, which this is, I'm correcting where my bones are in space. It's naturally a sacrifice to flow and energetic connection and some of the feeling stuff, because I just have to concentrate on that for now. And that bone level point could be elbows down, every time you get to a position, elbows down. Whatever the bone level thing is, when I'm working on bone level, I slow down, I work my legs more, I sacrifice flow, and I also forget the choreography more. I forget which movement I'm doing sometimes because I'm so focused on making this bone level, skeletal correction. So I don't sweat that. I would much rather have my head in the right place and mess up the choreography than do the correct choreography but have my head forward. For me, this is not a question of Chinese medical or energetic or woo-woo or meridians or any of that stuff. Good or bad, real or not. What I'm talking about is, this is not about that. For me, this is about maintaining my head and neck and my low back, sacral area, in having less pain there and having that be a source of pleasure in my life and connection, as opposed to this area of tension and headaches. I've had my head forward most of my life. When I was growing up, I didn't even start Tai Chi until I was close to 30. So my postural habits were set and my head was way forward, and then computers made it worse. But I've been working on it, obviously doing Tai Chi for 30 plus years, working on that. But this latest thing of really like supporting that head connection or correction with the hips and the heart first, and then doing that head thing, has really made a difference. My balance and my kicks is way better. I'm feeling like I'm working my core more. So I would much rather have this correct than be in the correct choreography, but in a less than aligned position. So I'm not doing this for martial theory or Qigong theory. I'm doing this for my preservation of my health and pain-freeness in my body. When I sit into my hips and I tuck my hips a little bit and I lift my chest and I draw my head back and up, I don't feel any pain or tension in my neck or my lower back. I just feel a nice open feeling there. And then of course life comes along and distorts that, but I keep coming back to this. And what's happened is I'm having a lot less of the mild chronic pain that I've had in my head and in neck, and my sacrum region is just disappearing, which is super, super nice to feel. And it just feels more functional. I also feel like martially my spine can just turn more fluid if I'm slightly forward. I feel like I'm like a revolving door with fins on it or something that disperse the force that way too much. I feel like if my hips are set and my heart and my head are aligned there, I just feel like my turning ability is just so much better. I feel turns are just so much more fluid. Balance is better in kicks, and in general just less discomfort in my body, which is, I think, important. I'm using my own body as a laboratory about what to do next, much more than dogma, form dogma. And I think you should too, because you might be the genius exception to any rule that is in the book. There's not one set way of doing things for all the 6 billion people of the world. So dogmas are nice, forms are nice, form directions are nice, whatever your style is has certain rules. Those things are all good. But also feel for yourself. So if the dogma says do something that hurts and causes you pain or strain, I would say back off, don't do it, find another way. So I have, for me, punching, striking, moving, everything is better when my spine is as close to upright as it can get. So, and still do the movement. Obviously I wouldn't fight with my spine like straight up in the air, but to keep heading in that direction it has really helped me in all aspects of what I'm doing, even though primarily I'm doing this for pain management or just for future. I'm doing the old guy in my future a solid by setting these things up so that I take gravity this way and not this way where it does damage to the bones and stuff. I should say I'm 65 years old, and I move pretty well, and my balance is very good. I mean, I can bounce 100 times easily on one leg while doing this. I can hang out here for minutes at a time. This is just a little cherry on the sundae. So when I'm standing up on one leg like this, if I was doing this on one leg, hips, heart, head, even better. Now I'm really upright. It's just like a spring going straight down my spine into my foot. So good stuff. I like it. I hope you do too. I hope you give it a try. See how it works for you. It will slow you down. You have to stop your form sometimes and just check those things, and then just move on to the next one. But if you can incorporate this into your practice, I think it will improve your health and your other martial goals and whatever else you're doing with your body. I can't believe this could be negative. So it feels so good. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it. More info from me on GeneBurnett.com. If you want to tip me, I have a tip basket underneath this video and also over at GeneBurnett.com. But positive comments are always nice too. Thanks for watching.